for me.
No, you're not talking about remembering how to hit go live.
Well, I did that. So people are going to see this, and this is going to be like the longest intro we've had on a show. I don't remember where the hell.
Media.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I am your host, Dallas Hammer, joined by the superstar of Idaho's 92-89 victory over Montana State on Saturday. He who lit the rims on fire himself, brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Good to be here, guys. $25 richer after that free throw contest W Dallas is talking about. I'm going to spend 1 second talking about this. I actually grew up playing basketball. I don't play basketball anymore. Cartilage divot did my career in about 4 years ago. When you're on a D1 court, like the depth perception is weird. The rim seems like it's 4 inches away. So that would explain my feast or famine. But anyway, guys, good to be here. We'll be talking basketball soon. But Dallas.
It is Tubs at the Club. We know all about 4 inches here, Brian. We are going to get started.
Seems a little big.
Whoa. I mean, Hey, you know what? We're just going to get to it around the bar. Brought to us by Hughes River Expeditions, because any more talk about this, and we might even see 5, Brian. But anyways, Brian, we've been holding on a couple different coaches we haven't discussed on this podcast. The Vandal football staff is filled out, obviously, with the portal season well underway. Only a couple days left before. Hopefully, next week we will see a little bit more discussion about the portal guys here on our show. But we have held off 2 coaches that we have not discussed: running backs coach Spencer Treadwell and defensive line coach VJ Malo. Brian, we see a comment from the one, the only Mark Trivelpiece. Is that why we saw some air balls? Brian, I'm going to let you answer that.
I mean, yeah, I don't have that much to add here. I don't really play basketball that much anymore, dudes. And again, cartilage divot in your left knee. That means your shot's arm heavy. can be a little more like minor variations in that release on the arm. Then when that's where 90% of your power is coming from, yeah, you can have a wider range of outcomes. So yes, Mark, for those who wanted a way too long discussion about shooting free throws for 30 seconds, you came to the right place tonight.
Yeah, we're talking about 4 inches, heavy arms, outcomes. Man, it's getting heavy on tubs at the club tonight. But gentlemen and ladies, it is time. Brian, we're gonna just jump right in. VJ Malo, tell me about him.
Well, of all the coaches, head coach Thomas Ford has brought on to his staff, VJ Malo has the least background to talk about. He's definitely young, guys. I mean, he was a player at Portland State. He was all Big Sky level. And I mean, we're talking back in like 2022 was his last season playing. He was all Big Sky level, has the Portland State team record for sacks and tackles for loss in a season. So he's very productive. But as a coach, his career as a coach started not that long ago. In 2024, he coached at O'Day High School in Seattle, where they won a state title. And then this past season, he was the edges coach or defensive end coach at Portland State. That happened to be the only personnel group at Portland State that was not a complete dumpster fire. Included Spencer Elliott, who a lot of Vandals, myself included, were hoping that bringing Malo would mean Elliott may be coming with him. But Spencer Elliott committed to Hawaii earlier this week. Elliott picked up 6.5 sacks and 11 tackles for losses. But like sincerely, Portland State was terrible this year. The only group at all that stood out in any sort of way was the pass rush. And that would be where VJ Malo specialized. Not that anyone looks at the coaching roster with a demographic checkpoint as their litmus test for hires. It's pretty normal for us staffs to get a guy with Polynesian background as a D-line or DC or edges coach or linebackers coach. And we saw Eck. I mean, Eck that was part of, the background of guys who coached under Eck. Similar to Eck, Thomas Ford has a pretty diverse staff. Again, that part doesn't matter. The big deal is that he's young, he's got energy, he's from the Pacific Northwest, probably has connections with Thomas Ford through that Pacific Northwest time. And look, the pass rush was terrible for Idaho last year, right? So what's he going to do? Produce worse than Finau did? So fingers crossed. Ford's added a lot of experience at the coordinator position, offensive coordinator position, a lot of overall coaching experience with Lee Stalker at DC as well. So, if you're going to take a shot on a younger guy, a position coach is a great place to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about that, Brian. It feels it's very similar to the Treston Deku hire was last year. Obviously, the defensive back room was not quite what Idaho wanted it to be. The safeties were not coached by Deku. He the corners coach and is the corners coach in 2026. Caleb Ricks obviously came in as a true freshman, was unbelievable, and Deku's had some nice things to say about him online. Deuce Blundman was up and down at times, but played better as the year went on. And overall, the DBs were certainly not a super strong point, but we did see the flashes where Ricks looked really good. Kinsey looked good in those few games he played before he got hurt. Deku was a guy who came right out of college, jumped into he actually played in the NFL, was with the Texans and Cowboys, and then moved on to kicking around in the UFL and the CFL. VJ Malo is very similar to that, kicked around in the IFL a little bit, had 2 years between a couple different teams there before getting into coaching. He had 1 year, again, that year back at his high school, O'Day is where he's from. Coaches at O'Day, wins the state title there. Deku was a grad assistant at Oregon State for 1 year before Ford got the job, brought him over as a position coach. I don't hate the idea of bringing in a guy who's on the younger side, is going to be able to relate to players pretty easily because, again, the careers overlap pretty well there. And then, again, it's a position coach. And I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm okay with giving a guy some experience that he's going to grow into instead of, again, the Matt Linehan 2-3 years as a position coach, right, an offensive coordinator. We've seen how that worked. This is the opposite of that. The guy was a great pass rusher, defensive lineman at Portland State. Again, like you said, team record for sacks. He was an all Big Sky guy. Last year was the only position group that we even attempted to talk about on the show. I think we might have mentioned that they had passed through 6 quarterbacks, and they were at the Cal quarterback's little brother at that point, who I think finished the year for them. But VJ Malo, like on paper, what you want in the D-line coach, again, the Polynesian connection is huge. He did a really good job last year at, yes, the school with probably more pass rush reps than anybody else on the planet. But at least in the first quarter, and then after that, they didn't rush passer again because nobody needed to throw. But all in all, Brian, really excited about the hire. The guy seems very, very, very excited to be here. His social media presence has already been like super crazy pro vandal. You can't be that upset about a position coach that doesn't have a ton of experience when it's the FCS level, and this is kind of what you get here.
And I just want to add, it's nice to have another coach who's aggressive on social media. Ford absolutely is, but last season, the staff was kind of hit or miss, let's say. And obviously what we care about is what they do in practice and in the games the most, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have people who are energetic, engaging with fans, which I know Malo did. I mean, hell, he DM'd me when I sent a welcome tweet, when he was initially announced. So I don't got anything more to add, man, other than we do have a running back coach, which those two hires, which they happened a little bit ago, that very likely rounds out the coaching staff for the upcoming season. And the new running back coach is Spencer Treadwell. Dallas, I'll let you run through his background, but Treadwell, our understanding is what really got him to Idaho is the connection with Ian Shoemaker. Which Thomas Ford had been open back, early in the offseason, that the hiring the running back coach would sort of wait until he had an OC, so the OC could have a stay in it. But Dallas, what do you know so far about Spencer Treadwell?
So Spencer Treadwell is the exact opposite of VJ Malo and Tristan Deku. And the running backs coach he replaces, Lance Dunbar, was one of those guys, played in the NFL for a handful of years. Comes to Idaho with very little coaching experience, at a couple years as a GA at Tulsa. Spencer Treadwell is not that guy. Anybody that's super into Big Ten football might recognize the name Treadwell. His father, Don, was once the interim head coach at Michigan State when Mark D'Antonio had, I think, a heart attack in 2010, maybe cancer, whatever it was. When Mark D'Antonio couldn't coach for a year, Don Treadwell was the coach that stepped up and was their interim guy. It was after that he then got the head coaching job at Miami of Ohio, which is where his son Spencer played for him at. Now, Don Treadwell has been a coach for 40 some years. So Spencer grew up in football. Actually, the stats department here, give me 1 second. I had that tab open. Don Treadwell has been coaching since 1986, Brian. So as coached consecutively from 1986 to 2022. So Spencer Treadwell comes from a football family, played for 3 years at Miami of Ohio, immediately moves on to Kent State, becomes a grad assistant there, goes on to a place I've never heard of called Alma College, becomes their running backs coach. Then he moves on to Walsh University, coaches the receivers there. He goes to Arkansas Pine Bluff, becomes the tight ends coach and special teams coordinator. So again, for anybody counting along here, that's GA, running backs, receivers, tight ends, and special teams that he's all coached in the span of about 7 years. Then he goes to Defiance College, becomes their assistant head coach, their offensive coordinator, their quarterbacks coach, and then their recruiting coordinator as well.
That's NAIA.
That isn't. Thank you, Brian. That's an NAIA school. Before last year, he leaves NAIA, takes a position coach as the Eastern Illinois running backs coach. That is probably his most relevant experience for the job. Is again. That's certainly the highest up the coaching tree he's gone, getting into FCS as a position coach. And Brian, Eastern Illinois was really, really bad, but their running backs group did put up 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's what we know about Spencer Treadwell. He's a guy that has coached he's been a professional coach for almost a decade now. He has been for a decade if you count GA. Been around the block quite a lot, been at many different places, many different, again, levels of football that he's coached at as well.
Yeah, we talked about with Malo, a position coach certainly should not be a make or break hire for a staff. But I like the Treadwell hire in that similar to guys that similar to some to like Lauren Ensley, let's say, where Lauren Ensley has some the offensive line coach. She has some play calling experience as well. I like when guys feel like they might be a little overqualified just based off previous jobs. I'm talking about the time at Defiance where Treadwell was associate head coach plus the offensive play caller. So I like that different breadth of knowledge. And anytime you have other guys who are play caller, who have background as play callers, I like it because we're not going to have a situation like last year where we have a new play caller by any means, but I just like that additional background, that additional understanding of the game while running your own position group. And one of the benefits to me, of position coaches doing well at Idaho and then moving on, or OCDC is doing well at Idaho and then moving on, is just building up the reputation as a place that it's good, where you can absolutely launch your career. So to me, any position coach who has background as a play caller is a guy that you look forward to. Hey, maybe they can make a jump to a different staff where they have more responsibilities later, or a different staff but they're moving up to FBS. That's all great news to me. So I'm happy about the hire. I also like that Ian Shoemaker got to have a bit of a say in, bringing at least one staff member in. There's this offseason, Ford brought quite a bit of some Midwest connection into the coaching staff. And as far as recruiting, we know that Ford's got the West down pretty damn well, but the Pacific Northwest too, but he's really got the West down. So having some people that might be able to help spread that recruiting footprint out a little bit further, to me, it's a win.
Yeah, at Eastern Illinois, weirdly enough, the Eastern Illinois does things a little bit differently because they are not in the power conferences of the FCS. Their website is a bit of a gong show, but at least the nice thing about their website is it does actually list the recruiting areas that the coaches were responsible for. So Spencer Treadwell last year at Eastern Illinois was responsible for recruiting Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So 4 schools that are not related to, or 4 states that are not related to Idaho at all, other than some law tech battles back in the day of the old WAC. But really nice to see, Brian, that again, like you said, just getting that recruiting footprint to stretch a little bit, especially in a day and place where 10,000 plus kids ended up in the transfer portal, and most of them aren't going to play college football again. And I mean, we're seeing Idaho has brought in some transfers again. We're gonna get into that at some point later this season, but some of these transfers are from like New Hampshire. Like, it's not just, hey, Eshawn Daniels came from Weber State, his dad played here at Idaho. That's a pretty obvious and easy transfer to make. He was a corner. Like, it lines up. Idaho needs corners. But then you get into like Luke Teskey from New Hampshire. How the hell do you find a kid from New Hampshire? Well, again, expanding that coaching staff with guys that recruit more than just the PNW. Not that there's anything wrong with the PNW and the reliance on Ford Sports kids, which I think is going to end up really helping over the next few years. Nice to see that footprint expand out, Brian. So that should do it for the coaching staff. That
and Treadwell, I don't know if you said it. I just hadn't seen it elsewhere published. Spencer Treadwell was the recruiting coordinator at Eastern Illinois too. So again, additional responsibilities that a positional coach takes on, that an Idaho positional coach has previously held. To me, that's nothing but good news.
Couldn't agree more, Brian. Again, you're talking about bringing in a young kid who has been around football his entire life. And I mean, a young kid, he's probably older than I am, but a young kid, quote unquote, who's been around football his whole life. Like on paper, I can't hate this hire. There's no reason to hate this hire. If you wanted to get nitpicky, it's, their running backs only ran for 1,100 yards. Well, yeah, their offense had barely over 3,000 yards.
Yeah, we all know to not like. Look, Eck got fired as an O-line coach at Idaho, guys, because he was on staff of a shitty team. Just because the team sucks doesn't mean positional coaches aren't going to be good. We don't know anything, right, about what he'll actually be like at Idaho. But there's no reason to believe he's not ready for the job.
Yeah. A couple last things I wanted to hit about him. When he was at Alma College, that first college he was at in 2017, he was the running backs coach there when the running back Caleb Reinhart set the school's rushing record in the game. So pretty impressive there. When he was at Defiance College, he had 6 different guys named to the all-conference team on the offense. So has had some success at realistically every place he's gone. So hoping we're going to see again a revamped Idaho running back room. Hoping we're going to see Treadwell's influence really foster that and really bring Idaho to what we expect, which is a team that's going to run the ball. Or Thomas Ford's a running backs coach, has made it very clear he wants to run the ball. I think that's it. Just makes sense. This is going to be a key hire, even if again it's a position coach, and realistically, if you nailed every single hire except the running backs coach this year, well, hey, it's probably not going to get you fired if you nailed your coordinators and the team's improved. Like you miss on a position coach, it's one thing. I don't think he missed on the position coach here, Brian. Anyways, that takes us through the entire coaching staff, guys. And unless anything unforeseen happens, that is your Vandal coaching staff for 2025, 2026. I had a brain fart. I just completely, without producer Martin here to keep me honest, it shut down.
Yeah. So we're going to purposely not talk about transfers into the program, guys, for a little bit longer. We want the roster to be cohesive, and we want to actually add something to the conversation other than what you can learn by looking at Twitter for 4 seconds anyway. Yep. But did think today, look, the portal closes as far as being able to enter the portal. That closes the 16th, correct, Dallas?
Correct.
Yeah, we're recording today, January 13th. So in 3 days, that portal closes, and whoever is on your team can no longer leave. That doesn't mean new guys will not be added. People can be added at any point between now and, well, in theory, the start of the season. And last I saw, more than 10,000 players had entered. Don't know how many players of that remain in the portal unsigned, but let's say we're probably going to learn more about guys coming to Idaho between now and spring ball or post spring ball. But we feel pretty secure that we're at the point that we can just talk about the guys who acknowledge the guys who are leaving and then never talk about them again. And, the list to me, I spent like 1 second on it last week because broadly speaking, the math that I do now with the roster turnover, because I don't want to be a grandpa who just bitches about stuff. Like, obviously it sucks when some people leave, but hey, some guys come in. But the frame of reference I have now for guys is it's a very, they're with us or they're without us type of thing, not antagonistically, but once you're not a Vandal, you've actualized what you are going to do for the school. And most of the guys who we're going to run through real quick, now that they're no longer Vandals, their roster spot based off last season's production, just an open roster spot, is infinitely more valuable than the level of production most of these guys gave in 2025. So for a lot of these guys, I mean, if they stay, you're invested in their development, but they're gone. So like, whatever, like, hey, good luck, goodbye. There's honestly about 5-ish guys that I feel Ford probably feels he needs to legitimately replace. And the rest of the guys, I think Ford may be sad they're gone, but is happy for the open roster spot, thinks that Idaho can upgrade based off that. So Dallas, you want to make a rundown of the dearly departed?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the big ones, the names that people are going to remember, the casual listeners of this show and the casual watchers of Vandal football will remember. The big one is Dylan Lane. Obviously, brother Jack was the starting quarterback here in 2024. Dylan has his career at Idaho cycled up and down. He played a pretty good amount as a freshman, kind of lost his job midway through his sophomore year, didn't see a ton of reps, and then last year came back with a vengeance, was the team captain, one of the leaders on the team. But Brian, he's headed off to Oregon State following Court Dennison. Should be, I believe, his final year of eligibility. Bummer that he's moved on. But in many instances, I don't give a shit about the kid once they leave. I mean, I do, but
I think
Dylan Lane's moving
know what you mean.
Back home.
Yeah, listeners know what you mean. You're not talking about wishing ill will. You are saying we talk about Vandals. If you're not a Vandal, you're no longer part of our calculus. But no, him following Court Dennison makes sense. He's an Oregon kid, so exactly. A hometown-ish school offers completely makes sense. Just because we're a podcast and we're dorks, we talk about this stuff. I know that listeners, this may matter to them. Does it change your feeling at all that he went to Oregon State over New Mexico?
Not at all. I don't give a shit. I know people do, and I respect the hell out of that. And this is what college football is nowadays. And I've chosen to appreciate Jason Eck for the 3 years he gave us, and not be as upset that he rat fucked us on the way out, because most coaches are doing that at this point. Matt Campbell took 24 players from Iowa State to Penn State, and this is just how college football is until the NCAA falls apart and something else comes in with private equity and irons it out and makes it good for 3 years before private equity kills everything like it always does. But Brian, that's another topic for a completely different show that's not about sports. So going back to some of the bigger names people are gonna notice, Matthias McLean has unfortunately left Idaho for Wazoo, and I despise Wazoo. I find it fucking hilarious that Wazoo is in the same exact spot Idaho was when the WAC died. And all of their fans do not seem to understand yet that you have just entered the bottom half of the FBS, and good luck to you. You are in no man's land now. You are not this Pac-12 underdog. You're now a nothing in the middle of nothing. Congrats. But Matthias McLean, his mom did post a picture of her holding him underneath the Coug on campus. Like, growing up in Priest River, Idaho is not, I mean, they are important, but they're not. Realistically, if you're growing up there, you're going to grow up as much of a Wazoo fan, if not bigger than Idaho. So, man, props to him for getting to stick around, be close to home, play for, he's got photos on the campus as a kid. Like, good for him. It's a bummer, but I will passively watch him from, again, 7 miles apart and say, hey, I hope you kill it in your time over there. Thanks for your years here, but outside of that, I was really hoping he was going to go on to bigger and better than Wazoo.
I mean, I got nothing to add. Wish him the best. He was the best D lineman Idaho had last year. I guess with local guys, if they're going to leave, if they stay local-ish, look, they get to go wherever they're going to go. And I'm not going to pay that much attention to McLean because I don't pay that much attention to WSU. But best of luck. Losing Caleb Ricks to San Diego State, that was a little bit of a gut punch because it was clearly a gut punch to the coaching staff because the coaching staff had announced he was coming back. And the coaching staff, that's not a group of morons with connecting with social media. Like, they get how this stuff works. There's no way they're posting if Caleb Ricks had not directly said, I am coming back. So something changed. He ended up going to San Diego State. Again, that he's got, I don't know. The same thing with all these 4-ish guys is what I'm going to say here. Like, hey, it sucks, but whatever, he's gone. The fact of losing these guys hurts for like 10 seconds. But then, like, when you zoom out to 1,000 feet, like, there were 4-ish guys that Idaho wanted to keep. We kept none of those 4 guys. Ricks is probably the biggest loss in terms of, what he brought as far as a lockdown corner. But we also talked all season about expecting him not to come back for 1 year. So that doesn't hurt as much. And I'll let you finish up.
It's a bummer about Ricks. I do hope for his sake. I mean, he put in a great year here. I hope his career continues to have that trajectory. Dwayne McDougal was able to go from NAU to Idaho to San Diego State, now to Nebraska following Rob Orich up there. I look more at Andrew Martin and Ormani Arnold is now, he went from Idaho playing barely to Cincinnati playing barely to now New Mexico with Eck. But I look at Andrew Marshall and what he did. Andrew Marshall stuck around in Idaho for that second year, became one of the best corners in the FCS, immediately got offered by Nebraska, became a starter at Nebraska, and is realistically probably going to get drafted at the end of this year, assuming he stays healthy. I look at a kid doing that and I think, man, I hope Caleb Ricks got paid, or I hope, whatever, if his parents were pushing him toward it, I hope whatever decision he made was, there were good reasons for it, because I look at a kid like that and like, man, you were a fringe freshman All-American kind of guy, you come back and you're going to be one of the best defensive players in this conference, man, you're going to get a payday after year 2. And I think that's what the coaches were trying to talk him into. I think that's going to be where we head eventually with the transfer portal. But obviously right now it's a free for all. And if you go get your bag, congrats. Best of luck. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Brian, stepping down from that is like, those were the 3 big ones. McLean, Ricks, and Lane are the 3 guys that were like solid contributors that played a ton of snaps. From there, we start getting trickling down into guys that maybe we don't know as much about or didn't see as much. Just hitting some of the names here. Rocco Koch has gone to an NAIA school, Oregon University, Arizona, or Ottawa University, Arizona. I don't give a shit about NAIA schools, but good for him. Apparently, really wanted to be a quarterback. I think that was about the only place he was going to be a quarterback was an NAIA school. So good luck to him. But again, Rocco Koch out the door. Nick Josephek looks to be likely taking a scholarship from Eastern Oregon University. He has not committed, but he has posted the offer. He's also posted his visit and being in the jersey there. Again, thank him for his time as the quarterback here for a couple different seasons, a couple different games across those seasons. But pretty obvious that backup quarterback was going to be in flux after a true freshman came on as a walk-on and won the backup quarterback job over Josephek and Koch and who was injured and Jack Wagner. So Josephek out the door. Markai McKinnon was the 5th running back or 6th running back for Idaho last year. Did not see the field. Has a Southern Utah offer that he's tweeted about, but has not committed anywhere yet. Will Cornelson has 6 different offers. He was a linebacker that played a good amount of time last year. One of those offers is Weber State. So we may end up seeing him again a little bit, but also the rest of his are scattered FCS offers. Going through, Matt Irwin played a bunch last year. Matt Irwin has committed to UCF, following in the footsteps of Exree Alexander. Good luck to him. I did not see a Power 4 offer coming for him. Best of luck, Matt. I hope you get some playing time. Hope you kill it. Brian, outside of that, we are then scraping the bottom of the barrel for Trenton Swanson. Has tweeted about an Eastern Washington offer, but then has recently been tweeting about Central Washington. So not sure if that Eastern offer is happening or if he's looking like he's going to be dropping down to Division II. Hayden John, we've talked about a little bit. We talked about him on the last show. Has posted a lot of schools showing interest in him. He now has 4 offers that he's tweeted about. He's tweeted about UMass and Buffalo, UC Davis, and Southern Utah. So we might see him here in the conference. Might see him apparently a couple of his FBS offers, but he has not committed anywhere yet. Outside of that, Brian, we are looking at Davis Fry, preferred walk-on that is in the portal. He has not tweeted about any place he's going. Can do the same with Emerson Cortez Menjivar. Has not tweeted about where he's going. Wiley Donnerberg, Dylan McIntyre, Wayne Queen, Calvin Macy, Joshua Barnes, all guys that have transferred out of the program who did not see the fields much, if at all, who have not posted anything about where they're going. I wish all of those dudes the best of luck, but again, as we have discussed on the show, and you can find it anywhere on the internet, and there are significantly more players in the portal than there are spots, and that's just how this is going to go for a lot of kids. Go to the portal, you might not play football again.
Yep, I got nothing to add on the rest of the departed. Best of luck. We're done talking about him on the show.
Yeah, perfect. Brian, we are half an hour in, and it's time. Do you know what time it is?
I do, because I'm part of the show.
Oh, well, in that case, let me get the presentation going, because again, producer Martin's usually already got this working, but my screen share failed the first time I did it. So let me try it again. There it goes. I think maybe this is really producing in public here. There it goes. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main salmon river of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. And you can check out special trips like one to see the Perseid Meteor Shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs. And guys, same thing I say every week, but nobody seems to get it. Fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes. HRE is going to handle everything else for you. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, we obviously do not have Mr. Martin Heemstra today, which means you are going to be covering women's basketball for us today. So, Brian.
Yeah, we'll be talking both the men's and women's team. So I'll lead off with the women. So this past week, the women split road games in they beat Montana at the University of Montana, got killed by Montana State in Bozeman against Montana. That was 67-50 win for the women. They were paced by a career night from Kyra Garner, 28 points on 10 to 15 shooting, also picked up 11 rebounds and 7 steals. So insane. That's that. By the way, that's your game's MVP. Off the bench, Deborah Dos Santos puts up 8 points in 19 minutes. Additionally, Hope Hassman adds 12 points on 10 shots. Lorena Barbosa, starting center, adds 10 points in 17 minutes. Look, Montana is pretty bad on the women's side. They're as far as their overall record. The Grizz are 3-12 and 0-4 in Big Sky play. They suck, and Idaho does not. Idaho beat the shit out of them in the end. That's kind of what you learned. The opposite lesson was, teased the Montana State Idaho matchup as kind of being the two top teams in the conference, and it was. But Montana State and women's basketball, they're kind of on a different level. Like right now, they moved up 9 spots in NCAA net ratings after picking up a couple after this last week of games. The Montana State women, they're the number 72 ranked NCAA net rated team. Idaho is the second highest in the Big Sky at 131. You guys can handle. That's a pretty big gap, right? Well, that's what it looked like when Montana State beat Idaho 99-66 in Bozeman. And, the Bobcats held Idaho to 34% from the field, while the Bobcats shot 52% from the field. Idaho contributors to pay attention to did not have a career night from Kyra Gardner. She has 4 points on 1 of 9 shooting against the Bobcats. Really, the guards for Idaho, who have been, they're the top 2 scorers of the team. They're very productive. Hope Hassman, Kyra Gardner. Those 2 against Montana State combined to shoot 4 of 22. So, Idaho's not winning any games against the best team in the conference if they're getting guard-level production like that. Deborah Dos Santos, 10 points off the bench in 17 minutes, although 17 minutes picked up 3 fouls pretty quick. We've covered this on the show that her minute restriction is probably going to hover around 25. The goal is, can't you get to actually 25 minutes each game? Anna Pinheiro led the Vandals on the night, 15 points, added 6 rebounds as well. The biggest takeaways from that, Montana State is just the overwhelming favorite to win the women's Big Sky Conference Championship again. Just like last season, the Montana State women they're at a level where if they somehow do not win the Big Sky Conference tournament at this pace, the Montana State women should be actually in the discussion for, are they going to get an at-large bid? Now, no one should project the Big Sky is going to get an at-large bid anytime soon, but that's how good the Montana State Bobcat women are. This week, this is for the men and women. We're entering King Spud week, and the women have been holding their end up of the King Spud competition the last few years. The men have not. And Idaho, I really think it's important that Idaho brings that goddamn trophy back, especially after losing all the trophies this past season. Not taking home the Stein in football, not losing the Idaho, whatever the hell the potato trophy is that we play for in the Idaho State game, whatever it's called. I do like that trophy, and losing the Chisco Cup. Good God, man. Football loses 3 trophies.
Oh,
Basketball guys, you got to step up. It's your turn. Football was doing pretty damn well for the last few years. Basketball, it's your time. So this week, Idaho's going to be playing Idaho State on Thursday, Weber State on Saturday. The women will be home for this swath of games. Men will be on the road. So if you want to see the women live, that's going to be 6 on Thursday, January 15th at 6 p.m. in Moscow. And then on Saturday, it's at 2 p.m. in Moscow as well. Weber State and Idaho State, a little bit of difference too. It honestly matches this past week on the women's side where, hey, Montana, they're women garbage, right? Well, Weber State's women are complete garbage too. They're 6-11, 0-4 in Big Sky play. That needs to be a walkover win on Saturday. The challenge is going to be Idaho State. Idaho State sits at 10-5 on the season, 3-1 in Big Sky play. Idaho sits at 11-5 on the season, 2-1 in Big Sky play. Idaho and Idaho State are 3 spots apart in NCAA net ratings. Idaho is at 131. Idaho State is at 134, which is just a way of saying both of those teams they're pretty solid. And there is a little bit of smoke. I know some of this relates back to John Newley time, but I don't think it's gone away. There is a little bit of smoke to the women's Idaho State matchup. I think there is on the men's side too, but I think it's a little bit stronger on the women's side. So, look, tune into that game. The names on the Idaho State side of the ledger that you're going to be paying attention to is leading scorer for Idaho State is Tasha Jordan. She's putting up 15.7, adding 6 rebounds as well. Number 2 scorer is Piper Carlson. She's at 10.5 points a game, 8.3 rebounds. Generally speaking, Idaho State women, they play a more physical brand of basketball. I don't care what Weber State plays. They suck. We know Idaho they play faster pace, but they do have, Coach Moreira brought in some size, in this offseason. So Idaho they can rebound. They can also battle it out down low a bit. Both those games I think are worth paying attention to. But the big one for me, man, we got to bring home King Spud.
Yeah, Brian, like you said, it's been a rough year for the major pillars of Vandal sports, with football losing every rivalry trophy possible. And then, like you mentioned, the men have not brought the trophy back for a while in basketball either. Really looking for the women to have a bounce back game against Idaho State on Thursday. Just thinking back to that Montana State game, man, oh boy, it is. It's not great when you allow 100 points in such a short period of time. Montana State shot 52% from the field and 30% from 3, while Idaho shot barely above 30 and barely above 20 from the field and from 3. So hope for a little bit of a bounce back against the Bengals coming up. But Brian, that means with the women hosting Idaho State and Weber State, it means the men are going on the road this weekend for the first bit of the battle for King Spud. But first, you got to tell everybody all about, again, the free throw competition that you so similar. You lit it up. We're not going to talk about your opponent because we don't need to do that. But you lit the world on fire and showed the Vandals you might need to be on that bench.
I definitely don't need to be on that bench. But look, for the men, they hosted Montana State, and this was very close to a catastrophic week for the men. Both of the games for the Idaho men, they started out cold and slow as hell. Against Montana, the Vandals were down around 16 points in the first half. They were
14 at the half.
Okay, down to 14 and a half. They trailed by more than 14 during that game. Idaho battled back to make this competitive, even took the lead late, but just they could not stop Money Williams. Now, did the refs help? And I'm not a big guy for bitching about refs, but full disclosure, Money Williams gets away with a shit ton of forearm work offensively, which I'm floored with what he gets away with. But he's good. Not trying to dismiss that. Dude put up 35 points on 11-21 shooting, 12-14 from the free throw line. One of the things that killed Idaho was Kenyon Aguino and Tejan Sawyer in the first half lit Idaho up. Those are two guys who are definitely role players, but they both scored double figures in the first half while the Vandals were, look, they were just cold. And for the most part, the Vandals stayed cold the majority of the night. Biko Johnson and Colton Mitchell against Montana combined to shoot 5 of 24. And similar to what I talked about on the women's side against Montana State, Idaho just cannot afford to have that level of production from the guards, which was really devastating because Jackson Rasmussen and Brody Robry, they brought it, especially in the second half. Jackson Rasmussen paced Idaho on the game, 16.7 rebounds. Brody Robry, 15.7 rebounds as well. Idaho was, in the second half, able to absolutely put it to Montana down low. And out rebounded the Grizz by 9 overall on the game, which is why that was such a devastating loss against Montana. And it was almost compounded because the Vandals trailed Montana State by 21 in the first half. Yeah. And the basics of that, Idaho was playing terrible defensively against Montana State. The Bobcats were getting whatever the hell they wanted, which was mostly a lot of pick and rolls, a lot of easy post-up shots or wide open threes. And Idaho was just missing everything. It's not like Idaho is getting bad looks against the Bobcats. They run an offense that doesn't have as many formal sets as Montana State. And when that's not working, people tend to say, hey, Idaho's just kind of rolling out and playing. It's not what's happening, guys, but it can feel that way. Things changed in the second half. The Bobcats are going to feel like they absolutely let one get away because the Bobcats did. But in the second half of the Montana State game, that was where Colton Mitchell really took over, which is great because Colton Mitchell had no points in the first half against the Bobcats. But Mitchell was sort of the hero in the second half. Finished the game with 23 points on 8 of 18 shooting. He, again, made a ton of huge shots in the second half, including he went 4 of 9 from 3 on the game. Biko Johnson and Jackson Rasmussen were essentially the only thing that kept Idaho from scoring 4 points in the first half. Rasmussen had 13 points on the game, both against Montana and Montana State. He's starting to get more aggressive. If I could just get into Ras's ear, what I tell him is when he attacks off the catch immediately, he is a matchup nightmare for almost everyone in the Big Sky. Because he's either too fast for the big guys or he's too strong for the guards. But there are times where he gets a little passive or it looks like he's trying to slow the game down for himself. When he does that, that's when he's less effective. But Rasmussen, we talked, last week talked about he'd had a run of a few games where he just had not been as productive. He did turn things around. 16 against the Grizz, 13 against the Bobcats. He fouled out against Montana State. Thought a couple of calls were kind of shitty, but he helped carry Idaho in the first half, and Biko Johnson did hit some big shots in the second half. He finished with 23 points as well. Both Mitchell and Biko finished with 23 points. Brody Robry adds 11. Isaiah Brickner had double figures off the bench in both games too. But one of the night and day differences was they talked about 5 of 24 for Mitchell and Johnson against Montana. They combined for 17 of 32 against the Bobcats for 46 points. So Idaho is they're going to get some points in production inside. That is part of who they are, but Idaho has to get production from the guards to win big games in the Big Sky Conference. So splitting those at home, you wish they came away with 2, but this was very close to a catastrophe. Honestly, Privel, there's no way that what Idaho's doing in the first half was the game plan because there's no coach who says, oh, hey, guys, get burned on every single pick and roll. That's what we're going to do, guys. Honestly, the team had no energy in the first half, and I am astounded they were able to come back the way they were. But as Ron Lowney said, a win is a win, and that's what Idaho picked up against Montana State. This week, it's a little bit different story for Idaho's going to be on the road at Idaho State, at Weber. Little bit different story talking about these teams than the women's teams. The Vandals overall now men, they're at 10-6 on the season, 2-1 in Big Sky play. Idaho State sits at 9-8 on the season, 2-2 in Big Sky play. Weber State 9-8 overall, 3-1 in Big Sky play. So let's talk about Idaho State first, because that's the King Spud matchup. Idaho State plays a slower pace. It's not the slow it had been a few years ago, but last year, Ryan Looney really opened things up in Pocatello, riding Dylan Darling. But he's gone, and the Bengals, they do play tough defense. They have some size. Now, mercifully, Idaho has some size too, but Idaho State, they rebound pretty well, and they are pretty tough inside physically. There's no single scorer who you're going to look at as the guy who's just going to take over and score 40 or something. Or they have no Money Williams on Idaho State. But you're looking at the top scorer right now is Connor Hollenbeck. He scores just under 14 a game, picks up just under 5 rebounds. And I'm going to butcher this. Caleb Vandegrind. He's post. He's averaging 13 points a game and 7 rebounds as well. I also got their starting point guard. This is a guy who's just steady. He's averaging 10 a game, but he's a very steady 10-ish. Jamison Guerra, he's at 10 points a game, and then the last guy in double figures is Martin Keel. He's at 10 points a game as well. There's a few Guerra is the point guard. He's shooting 45% from 3. Both Hollenbeck and Vandegrind are both at 39%. The big deal here for me talking Idaho State is, as referenced earlier, Idaho's got to win a goddamn trophy. I'm not doing the Grizz thing where, like, hey, if where the Grizz lose the Bobcats in football, like the Grizz fan base acts like this is the end of the world. Not having a trophy isn't the end of the world, but we're in year 3 of Pribble. Idaho is getting better and better each year. I believe Idaho is a more talented basketball team than Idaho State. I've actually watched a decent amount of Idaho State guys. They're a sound fundamental basketball team. They are well coached for sure, in spite of Ryan Looney's overall record at Idaho State. That's a well-coached team. That is not going to be an easy win for Idaho at all. If they play like they did the first half against Montana State, they're going to lose and get their ass kicked. But Idaho has more talent. Idaho can put up more points. Idaho has more difference makers offensively. I just think we're at a time now where we got to pick up that trophy, guys. And Idaho, in the mind of the Vandals team, I believe they think they're a top 3-4 team in the Big Sky. This is another type of team where, look, they needed to go 2-0 in the Montana games to kind of ride what I think this team should be. They got to make up for that Montana loss with a win somewhere. That's why I think this road trip is actually a pretty big deal for helping, kind of differentiate Idaho from some of the Big Sky. Because legitimately, it seems like there's about 6 teams that could win this league. And if Idaho wants to be in that discussion towards the end of the season, again, like, they got to pick up some road wins too.
Yeah, Brian, a pretty big key here. If God forbid Idaho goes 0-2 on the road trip here. Losses in hand to Idaho State and Weber State are going to make it very difficult to crack into that top 4 with Portland State being maybe not a class above everyone, but confidently sitting at the top of the Big Sky at the moment. I did want to ask, Brian, this Vandal team, you pointed out obviously the incredible comeback against Montana State. Down 18 points at half. They scored 62 points in the second half. There are games this season that they have scored 63 points total. Is that sustainable? Did Idaho find anything in that second half that can be carried forward? Again, like you mentioned, the first half was certainly not the type of basketball I think anybody wants to play. But in that second half, they did find a way to get 62 points up on the board. Anything they can take from that moving forward as they try to distance themselves from a pretty roller coaster weekend in Montana.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to sound like, look, this is either going to sound promising or not to everyone. It's defensively. And I say that because on the offensive side of the ball, Idaho's got some talent. Now, they don't have other than maybe Colton Mitchell, depending on how he's playing, they don't have like Big Sky Player of the Year talent, but they certainly have all Big Sky talent on the Idaho roster. But those guys, when they can play downhill, AKA in transition or, off of forcing a miss. Colton Mitchell's a lot more effective playing downhill. Biko Johnson, a lot more effective playing downhill. Jackson Rasmussen, a lot more effective playing downhill. And that's part of where you get Idaho putting pressure on defense and then looking for threes. We know the team's going to hit threes. They have to. That's part of how the team's going to win games. But there is a difference between making a defense adjust and getting a wide open 3 versus taking a 3 early in the shot clock or taking a 3 where the ball's barely entered the 3-point line. When Idaho defensively is not able to generate stops, it's harder for them to get their guys to play downhill. And so that's, against Montana State, part of it was the Vandals they executed a lot better on the defensive side, which meant they had more possessions off Montana State misses. And that also meant they had their key players being able to play downhill with Montana State defensively on their heels more. And when Idaho can do that, they can be a good team. This wasn't just Idaho hitting a ton of threes. They did hit threes for sure. But Idaho also has some tough shot makers. That's one of the things Colton Mitchell does. So I wouldn't look at the raw number. I would look at it as when Idaho's clicking offensively, they're a very good offensive team. There's a lot of guys, in spite of having no Christian Gonzalez, there's a lot of guys who are contributing. I mean, look, make a reference here to Jack Payne. Jack Payne, who he returned against Montana, and not a put down to the guy because he's coming off an injury. He did not look physically ready to play against Montana. He was almost 100% vertical on defense. He was unable to change direction. Was just playing out of control the entire game against Montana. Also picked up a pretty big flagrant one in the second half. So not trying to single out the guy long term. Just now against Montana State, he did move a little bit better. But Jack Payne was a guy we regularly talked about as a big difference maker on the team last season. He's not a top 5 scorer on this roster. That's because this is just a better basketball team than last year. So his role is going to change. And that's not a bad thing. There's more talent. So that's what I want to bring up as a reference point. There are guys who can score, and we know about Biko Johnson, Brody Robery, and Jackson Rasmussen. Those are the new guys, but the returning guys have developed. Colton Mitchell is an all Big Sky level player. He's going to make an all Big Sky team. He's a difference maker in this league. Biko Johnson, he looks like he might be closer to like honorable mention all league, but he can be a difference maker in this league. He's strong off the dribble. And, earlier in the season, both Mitchell and Johnson were struggling, especially from the perimeter. When those guys are hitting, this is as dangerous a team as there is in the Big Sky. So, yes, I do think we saw something in the Montana State game. The downside that we saw for Idaho is this. Look, every team in the Big Sky, because there's about 5 or 6 teams that can win it, but that means there's no clear cut, going to threaten for an NCAA tournament win. All of these teams are going to have their good news, bad news versions of themselves. The Grizz, they have the best one-on-one score in the league. But if he's not dominating, there's not a lot going on for Montana unless your defensive execution just is garbage like Idaho's was in the first half.
You can lose to Montana Tech being Montana.
Yeah, absolutely. Montana State, they don't have they clearly did not look like a more talented basketball team than Idaho to me. A bunch of solid guys, right? And they're another well-coached team. But there's no guy who's winning the Big Sky MVP on the Montana State roster. Idaho State plays real tough, but they can go through stretches where getting good shots is tough. They have a lot of role players. They don't have a lot of shot creators. So that's why that team has to play tough. There is no, Portland State probably has the most raw athleticism in the conference. Hey, maybe they're the favorite, and the NCAA net ratings would tell you Portland State right now is the favorite to win the Big Sky. But there's a lot of wiggle room between who is going to finish second and who is going to finish 6th in this conference, with not that much talent discrepancy explaining why. There's no reason Idaho should not be finishing, to me, around 3-ish. I think 3 is actually a fair number to say, hey, that's the number I think this Vandal team should be finishing at when they execute, when they play at passable defense and are able to get some transition offense going. The only time they don't get transition offense is if they're not stopping anyone. But when that happens, this is a team that can put up points in a hurry, about as good as any team in the conference.
And we are at about that hour mark. Question from Crewhead76 in the comment section. Question that you might not have the answers to, but again, it's a question that comes up pretty much every week. Is Christian Gonzalez going to make it back for the tournament? Obviously, you're talking about all that talent and this team getting better. Christian Gonzalez did lead the team in scoring last year. Would be a big add to the Vandal basketball program if he's able to see the field, or see the court again. Yeah,
well, and Gonzalez, he's as a 6 man. That's completely changes the dynamic of who Idaho basketball is. This is a team that in theory could have a 3-guard lineup where all guys can fluctuate between being your nominal point guard. All guys can shoot. All guys can put the ball on the deck a little bit. Team with Rasmussen and Robery. Now, separate question of if that lineup's going to stop anyone. But Christian Gonzalez adds huge element to this team. He was going to be, as a sixth man, he was probably going to get starter level minutes. Is he going to be back? He's still in a boot, but he's no longer in a scooter. So he's still walking around. It looks, I don't have a date, and this is Big Sky basketball, one big league basketball. You're not going to get great injury reports, but he looks like a guy who's going to be seeing the court this season. He's already played, so he does. I mean, there's maybe a line of fire saying medical redshirt most likely. We'll see. Like, medical redshirt is on the table. But I mean, this is also a team that's looking pretty good. If this team is going to make a run for the 3 spot, and maybe he wants to play. I don't know. I don't know the calculus that goes into that decision. I just know that he's clearly moving a lot better because he is not on a scooter. I saw him getting up and down and cheering on his team. So, and obviously in a boot, he's not ready to play, but he did not look like a guy who 100% is not going to see the floor in March. So we'll see. By the way, hey, just to talk Weber State for a second. Weber State is also a pretty solid basketball team this year. They're sitting at 3-1 in Big Sky play. Former Vandal Nigel Burris is a starting forward for the Wildcats, but just thing to pay attention to. The Wildcats they're just like Montana State. No single guy who's going to take over the game, but there are 6 guys on the Weber State roster who average double figures between 13.8 a game and 10.2 a game. So there's a lot of guys on Weber State who can contribute on any given night. One of them is going to step. One of them typically, or a few of them typically step up. That's how the Wildcats sit at 9-8, 3-1 in Big Sky play. Probably one of the surprises of early Big Sky play was Northern Colorado, who had kind of the out of conference marquee win in the Big Sky with a win over Colorado. The Bears sit at 1-3. They just lost to Weber State, but that's part of my reference of why I'm saying, hey, there's a lot of talent in this conference. There's a lot of teams that are pretty close. The Northern Colorado Bears, who beat Colorado last game of the out of conference season, opened up with a loss to Montana State, a loss to Montana, a win over Idaho State, and then a loss to Weber State. So no, there's 5 or 6 teams that think they can win the Big Sky Conference, or at least compete for that Big Sky Conference title. These are 2 big games for Idaho, but also this is a chance for the Vandals to separate themselves, because Weber State and Idaho State are in the discussion for teams that are going to be in that top 5 of the conference. But I think we're at the time where the threshold can't be Idaho has to win the conference, but we can start talking about the Vandals and Pribble as how are they going to finish overall? Pribbles is a very good offensive coach. And defensively, we knew that was not going to be the strength of the Vandals. We just have to see better execution that we saw in the first half against Montana and Montana State. If we had, that's 2 probably double-digit wins for the Vandals.
Brian, it feels like such a long time ago that we were talking about, could this team someday win a game in the Big Sky Conference tournament? And now here we are talking about, could Idaho be a top 4 seed in the Big Sky Conference tournament? Starch Madness coming to us, guys, in less than 2 months at the Idaho Central Arena in Boise, Idaho. Brian, any final thoughts before we adjourn for the evening?
No, other than to say, like, if you can, get your ass to ICCU, guys. Like, it is a real fun experience. The 2 games I was at, there's no students there, so you're at around 1,600-ish fans for each game. It gets loud in there when the team's playing well. If Idaho can average around 2,000 at each game, and the team can show up like they did in the second half of both those games, that's going to be, walk away, the best atmosphere in the Big Sky Conference for basketball. The games are fun as hell to go to, and if you can, like, you connect better with the team when you show up once in a while. It's hard to make all the basketball games, of course. I'm not going to make all the games, but I made it to these last 2, and never mind the team is better. Just seeing them in person helps a lot to kind of get you connected and buying into the team.
Mm-hmm. Guys, we will be back again. This is January 13th at 8:00 Pacific time as we are recording this. We are just a few days away. The transfer portal closing on January 16th. at which point next week we will have a full Vandal roster for you to hear about. We'll have again full finality on where the Vandals in the portal are going to end up, again, as well as the stuff we care the most about, what new Vandals are coming through the portal in these last final days. With that said, Brian, we will be back next week at some point. I think Wednesday is what we're looking at as our show. Again, with life, and to be totally honest, guys, I have an Offspring concert at Spokane Arena next Tuesday, and so a week from now, I will be hopefully getting punched in a mosh pit. But all of that to say, we will be back next week to talk about more Vandal basketball. Hopefully, producer Martin will be back to talk women, and we will have the final transfer portal updates for you next show. With that said, go Vandals.
Patreon.com/Tubbs the Club to support the show. Less than a cup of coffee a month, guys. It's how we keep the lights on. Go Vandals.
This is producer Brian doing a terrible job of even finding what we're going to play us out with. So we're just going to call it good. See you guys Tuesday. Motherfucker.
Go Vandals.